All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Two Chains, aka Dylan Frankel, aka Kamish, and I just want to welcome everybody to Two Chains Thug Hustler Posse Fantasy Football League 2014. I'm excited to have you all. Just want to say welcome to our two newcomers this year, Sam Hudson and Robert Forbes. It's a pleasure to have you in the league. It's a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to having you here. I want to start out by just saying I think I'm going to do these little video blog things each week, every 2 weeks. We'll see how it turns out. Um, so, yeah, let's get started. I just want to congratulate last year's champion, Steve Walton, who begins his title defense. He was 11 and 2 last year under the team name Multiple Score Gasms. He has recently been changed to Beats by Ray for the new season. We were able to get rid of Eric Lands and Josh Ciolik, who were kind of dragging last year, and I'm really glad to have Sam and Robbie this year to replace them. Trash talking. Let me just say before I get started with the teams here, I love it. I endorse it. Keep it going in the group message. It's all in good fun. But I'm hoping we can. I'm hoping some good trash talk always makes for a fun season. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through each team, talk a bit about each team to this point in the season, and yeah, we'll do a little bit of analysis. The power rankings. Starting in at number 10 in last place for through 2 weeks, I have Pavlov's Nilman, who are being run by Ari Nil. They are in last place. They're 0 and 2 at this point in the season, and Ari was sort of screwed because he was forced to do an auto draft. His ESPN draft room crashed on him during the draft, which is incredibly unfortunate. But all things considered, his team really didn't turn out too bad. He was able to pick most of his starters before the app crashed. He's very strong at running back. Obviously, LaShawn McCoy was his first overall pick. I do think McCoy is going to be a little bit less productive this year than last year. He had an amazing career year last year. Also, the Eagles have added Darren Sproles this year. That backfield has a little bit more talent, and Sproles is a threat in these PPR leagues. Taking away some of the passes I feel like McCoy would have had, but he's still going to be great. He's a top five guy most likely, I'd say. He also has Le'Veon Bell, who had a great rookie season last year, and he looks really good so far this year. He does have some strong wide receivers on this team, but they've just been underperforming to this point in time. Demaryius Thomas, he's the number one receiver on Peyton Manning's Denver Broncos. It's always good when you have Peyton Manning as your quarterback, but he's just been average through 2 weeks. Vincent Jackson, number one, he's a number one who's been underperforming. However, Ari did pick up Steve Smith, who is emerging, really, I think, as the number one receiver in Baltimore, over who's out there? Torrey Smith, who was last year's number one, but early on it looks like Steve is going to be getting the majority of the targets from Flacco this year. That was a great waiver wire pickup by Ari. I think Surrey dropped him, but we'll get into that a little later. The downfall of Ari's team certainly would be at tight end, as my colleague, Mr. Ryan Bush, aka Ace, had pointed out in his power rankings, which are hilarious, by the way. Make sure you're reading those every other week when they come out because those are just brilliant. Best comedic material in this league by far. But yeah, the tight ends on this team are really lacking. Garrett Graham, who is, I think, Texan? I don't know. You have to correct me on that if I'm wrong. And Eric Ebron, who is like one of four tight ends on the Lions, who he's not going to be getting many targets or many points for Ari this year. So look to trade Ari your tight ends. He really could use it. And this kid knows his fantasy football. He watches a ton of football. He always is looking at the waiver wire, always is paying attention. He knows a lot of stuff, so don't give up on him yet, even though he's 0-2. All right, moving on to the number 9 ranked team, who's also 0-2. That would be Peen Lumber. Manager Benz, Jordan Benzing, Benz, J Bones, all the names pointed out by Ryan in the power rankings. He's a man of many names. I'll just refer to him as Jordan, which is his real name for the sake of the video. great team on paper, but they seem everything just seems to be going wrong. The uh, the suspension of Adrian Peterson really led to Benzing being abused by armed robbery in week two. He lost by 57 points. That was a tough loss for him in week two. Also, Asiata, who is taking over for Adrian Peterson, I'm not 100% sure if he'll really be able to carry the load, although he did look good last week in his debut. He had, uh, if I remember correctly, around 20 points, maybe a little bit less. He looked pretty solid, but I'm not sure he'll be able to carry that weak Vikings running game without AP. But we'll have to wait and see. What else do we got here? Yes, Jordan Cameron is injured, a star tight end for Jordan Benzing's team. RG3 is hurt, which would indirectly affect Jordan's team because he has Pierre Garcon, Robert Griffin's favorite target by far, and now Kirk Cousins. He likes to spread the ball. He does not just target Garcon, so I think that's going to limit Garcon's production a little bit. Garcon was actually acquired by this team through a trade, not through draft. It was actually the only trade so far in our league, which was from Justin Tompkins. He traded, let me look here, Pierre Garcon and Danny Woodhead for Noshawn Moreno and Torrey Smith. So far, Moreno's been banged up after last week. He probably won't play, and Smith has been really not great so far through 2 weeks. Again, it's still early. I know I keep itching myself. I'm just an itchy guy today. I don't know what to tell you. And so I think this trade wasn't great for either side. It was fairly balanced. No, I wouldn't outweigh it either way. It could really benefit both of them in the long run. Honestly, I would look for the majority of points on this team to come from the wide receiving core, Alshon Jeffrey and Andre Johnson, two great receivers. Jeffrey really proved himself last year in Chicago. He's got Brandon Marshall on his team on the opposite side of the field, who's going to be drawing a lot of double coverage, and Jeffrey's going to be open a lot of the time. And Andre Johnson, of course, has been one of the best receivers in the league for the past 6, 7 years, something like that. He's incredibly talented, always a good fantasy option. And I think if Jordan's going to make the playoffs, he's really going to have to rely on that receiving core, and hope that Garcon gets past to get his points. All right, moving on to eighth place in the power rankings after week two. Peterson's Daycare. I love the team names that talk about these scandals. AP and Ray Rice, which we'll get into later. Peterson's Daycare is 1-1. And really, it's not a terrible team, but their lack of points scored through 2 weeks is what's keeping them from being ranked any higher. Injuries really have been the story of this team so far. Mark Ingram, I think, broke his hand. He's out at least a month, 4 to 5 weeks. That's going to hurt John in this PPR format. It was surprising. Usually Pierre Thomas would get the passes, but Ingram's been getting receptions. He's been carrying the ball. He had a couple touchdowns. Looked pretty good, but having him out's going to definitely hurt. Interesting strategy to pick up Josh Gordon and drop Steve Smith. I did not really understand that one, John. Maybe you were thinking that Gordon would be reinstated. However, looks like Gordon's going to be out. I don't know. I've had a hard time following at least 10 games. Maybe if they redo this drug policy thing, it could be less, but I'm thinking it's still going to be the whole season. So questionable pickup there. Your first round pick, John, Jamal Charles, questionable for this week, and he was out last week. I know that's got to be putting a damper on your life there. That doesn't make it easy when your first round pick is hurt. I can sympathize with that. Doug Martin, who has one fantasy point through 2 weeks. He only played in week one. He sat out last week. So that's again another weak spot. And if you're doing the math there, that's three running backs, Ingram, Charles, and Martin, that are really doing not a whole lot through 2 weeks for John, and I think that's really been limiting him so far. However, I do love the recent acquisition of Sammy Watkins, the emerging number one receiver out of the Buffalo Bills. Yay! Love it. Incredible pickup. Think he's really going to be used a lot in this offense. Didn't have a whole lot of targets in week one, but I think they really let him loose against Miami, let him see what he could do, and he made it count. Really had a great week. So, very, very good pickup. I like that. Um, in terms of this, the majority of the production coming from this team, I would look for the Philip Rivers Antonio Gates combo. That's always a great one to have, a star tight end with a solid fantasy quarterback in Phil Rivers. And Gates had an incredible week last week with 3 touchdowns. I have him on my fantasy team in another league. Very pleased with that. So I would really look for that combo to do most of the production and to carry John through the season if he's looking to make the postseason. Next, we move on to the East Dillon Lions. Now, their owner is none other than myself, Dylan Frankel. I have been deemed league asshole number 2 by my fellow league member Justin Tompkins, aka Kuntz. So watch out for me because apparently I'm the second biggest asshole in the league. I also just want to point out these porn rumors brought to the surface by Ryan Bush and his power rings. I just want to silence those rumors. I'm not creating any fantasy football porn because Brazzers rejected me. So, moving on, I am 7th in the power rankings. I am 1-1 through 2 weeks. Really, the standouts on my team so far, I would have to say, come from my wide receivers. A very wide receiver heavy team. I have Megatron, Calvin Johnson, who's just a fantasy stud every year. Picked him in the first round. Couldn't pass up on that opportunity. Looking for him to carry me throughout the season, get the majority of my points. I also went with A.J. Green, who's another fantasy stud, top 3 receiver in my opinion, behind only Calvin, and you can make a case for, Jimmy Graham, who's not even really a receiver, but we'll get into that later. Really those are my 2 stars. AJ is hurt. He did get 0 points last week, which certainly contributed to my loss. Because he got 0, obviously, and my wide receivers are backed. Rounded out the. Sorry, I'm just mumbling now. Larry Fitzgerald and Victor Cruz, two more solid wide receivers, and those 4 guys really are where I think I'm going to get the most of my points. I'm also heavy at tight end. I don't plan on really using these guys, so if you guys are interested in tight ends, I have Vernon Davis, Jared Cook, Kyle Rudolph, 3 solid fantasy tight ends. If you're interested, hit me up with a trade. That's really where I'm the heaviest. Besides Calvin really being the standout through the first 2 weeks, Giovanni Bernard has also been really solid. I also have Andy Dalton, so 3 Bengals on my team: Green, Bernard, and Dalton. I'm looking for, just really hoping the Bengals have a good season because that'll lead to some good fantasy production for me. Other than really those 3 to 4 guys, I know Fitz and Cruz are solid, but they've been average, and everyone else on my team just kind of sits somewhere between average and subpar. Really, not much to say. The only way I really feel like I have a shot at the postseason is if I make some moves at running back, which, keep your eyes out for that. I'll be scoping your teams, offering you trades for your star running back, so just keep your eyes open for that. Moving on to Richard Incognito. This is the team run by our buddy Ace Ryan Bush. He check out his power rankings. They're hilarious. They're much funnier than anything I'll ever be able to contribute to you guys. He has himself in his own power rankings as 3rd, which I think is an abomination. I have him 6th in ours, which is probably still overrating him a little bit. He's 0-2. Now, despite the fact that he lost the first 2 weeks by a combined 10 points, he has lost to teams that are, if you go down the list, the teams that are ranked 3 through 6, they have 316, 314, 316, 315 points scored. So you're talking about teams, I think one of those should be 313, but whatever. You're talking about 4 teams within 4 points of each other. It's totally jumbled. The only way to rank teams there would go by record, and Ryan is the only one of those 4 teams that's 0-2. How the hell could I put him 3rd and not 6th? I, I'm sorry, Ryan, but I just have to disagree with you. I think, maybe if you had won a fantasy matchup in the month of September in your fantasy career, then I would have a little bit more faith in your team. But for now, I'm gonna have to keep him in sixth place. You do, however, have to love a team with Drew Brees. Even in a losing effort against Cleveland last week, he was able to put up 43 fantasy points, which is obviously stellar. Brees is always a stellar fantasy quarterback. I think that was Ryan's first pick, which is a great first pick in these PPC formats that we do here. Another thing positive about the team, though, is the return of Wes Welker, who just had, under the new, I guess, drug um, policy. He's being reinstated this week, so look for him to emerge to get a couple more points for Ryan. And the main thing that he talked about was the fact that his name changed to Richard Incognito. That was some voodoo Tatum shit that he did to make his team better. They went 5-1 last year after he changed his name. I believe prior to Richard Incognito this year, he was the Mushu Mohicans. I don't get the reference. Sorry. Let me know what that means. So we'll see. We'll see if Richard Incognito can make a run at the playoffs. All right. Welcome again to our rookie, Samantha Hudson, the owner of Aiming for Last, which you can change that as Ryan described to you in his power rankings, if you please. This team is fifth in my power rankings, but I can't believe that they're 1-1, and I can't believe they only have 313 points scored to date. This is an absolute PPR format dream team, I think. Matt Stafford, always a top five guy in yards and completions for fantasy. Reggie Bush, great PPR running back, along with Pierre Thomas, who with Mark Ingram hurt and Darren Sproles in Philly now, he's going to be getting a lot of catches in the backfield. He's probably even going to be running the ball out there. So I would see I would expect a ton of production really coming out of Thomas in the weeks to come. Des Bryant's on the team, superstar wide receiver. Julian Edelman is emerging as one of Tom Brady's top targets so far. And Jimmy Graham, who is also on this team. He's the best tight end in the league. You could argue he's not a tight end. I've heard it all before. And, I mean, he's incredible. So, really, a bunch of stars on this team. And also the Seattle defense and special teams, who's number one in fantasy, who last year and in recent years has been very good. So you can really expect a lot of points out of the defense too. Although they were exposed by San Diego in week two, and I think it got negative points for probably the first time in a couple of years, I would have to imagine. I would like to say a quote here from Sam. Quote, I'm still scared of you guys, end quote. And this is Sam referring to our group message, how she likes to observe from afar. Sam, you don't have to be scared of us. I know we're intimidating, but you're welcome to say whatever you want. Don't be scared. We all say crazy shit. We're all weird. We're all a little assholey sometimes. It's all in good fun. Don't be scared. And what's the best part about one of the best parts about fantasy for me are these little rivalries that form, and I'm getting a little sense that there's a little Hudson Tompkins little feuding, little rivalry going on. Uh, Quote, fuck you, Jay, end quote, was uttered by Sam in the draft room after Justin was critical over Hudson's decision to draft a defense so early. And she later went on to say, quote, I'm still bitter about you saying I picked a defense too early, end quote. So, there's a little rivalry there. I know it's all in jest, but it's great. And I feed off that energy. I get so into fantasy because of things like that. So keep it up. Keep hating each other. Keep swearing at each other. Maybe like leak some like photos of Justin like doing illegal drugs or something. Like get a scandal going, and it'll be great. So all this considered, all this stuff about Sam's team. If they can get their shit together, I really think this is a playoff team. They definitely have that superstar potential, and they just need to start scoring more points, and they'll be in the playoffs. All right, now we get to the fourth in the power rankings. Coming in at 1-1 is Beats by Ray, who is managed by defending champion Steve Walton. So good luck to Steve, if I didn't already say that, on your title defense. The probably the best running back core in our entire league is on this team. Marshawn Lynch, Eddie Lacy, and let me check, Alfred Morris. Three really, really good guys, getting a lot of fantasy points. And if they can stay healthy, I think you're going to see a ton of production out of those three guys. And Steve probably is only going to be playing two of those guys a week. So Steve, maybe you should trade one of those guys to me. Hint, hint. Um, it's always smart to have Green Bay players, in my opinion, because Aaron Rodgers is just so good at distributing the ball. He's got Lacy, who's going to see a few catches a game. He's also got Randall Cobb, who looked great in the past couple weeks. I mean, every Packers receiver looks great with Aaron Rodgers throwing to him, but Cobb's been real good. That's always a smart, like I said, smart play to draft a guy like that. And then really the only thing keeping Steve's team from being 2-0 right now is just an absolutely devastating 1 point loss handed to him by the league patriarch, Robert Forbes, excuse me, Rob. He played Darren Sproles, who had just a massive night on Monday Night Football against the Colts, and yeah, he was just huge. That was insane, and a 1 point loss. That's tough to overcome. But you know what? He's the defending champ. He knows how to run a team, so I would beware of him. Next, coming in at number 3 in the rankings is Donald Trump's dollar bills. I don't like the name, Jay. Sorry. It's irrelevant now because Trump did not buy the team. It disses my squad. So I advise that you change it, but I don't care. A little bit about Jay. He is the self-proclaimed league asshole. Asshole number 1. I'm asshole number 2, as I pointed out. So watch out for him. And he has a bet with Ace, Ryan Bush, that if Delaney Walker finishes in the top 5 fantasy tight ends, Ryan Bush owes a naked lap around Lake Ontario. To which Ace responded, quote, deal, end quote. So hopefully the Walker won't finish in the top 5. I don't think he will. I think you're trying to sell him too high, way too high. But what do I know? You know, I'm 1-1. What do I know? You're 2-0. You call yourself overrated, but you've scored a lot of points. You're 2-0. That's all there is to it. What stands out to me so far, 6 starters on this team are in the top 6 in their respective positions. He's got Peyton Manning, obviously is going to be in the top 6 in quarterbacks, should rise to, at worst, I'd say number 3 by season's end. Ahmad Bradshaw, slowly but surely taking over the QB, or the running back, role in Indianapolis over Trent Richardson. Richardson really just hasn't done much since his rookie season. Last year was a severe drop-off with his first season with the Colts. And so far, Bradshaw's really been getting the production for Indy in the backfield. Antonio Brown, he continues to be Roethlisberger's favorite target. And I would expect that to continue. I believe Jay picked him, I want to say second round, could have been third. I think it was second. But he's a great receiver. He should remain in the top 5 or 6 for his position all season as well. Julius Thomas has become one of the best tight ends in the game, one of Peyton Manning's favorite targets, and that Manning to Thomas combo is going to just get Jay a ton of points, I think, for the entire season. Also, top 6 in his position so far is Delaney Walker. Have to give it to him. He is top 6 in his position, but it's been 2 weeks. He's overrated. He had one great week. There were trade rumors that I would like to address here, that an attempted trade of Delaney Walker and Stephen Ridley were trying to be traded from Jay to the Nilman for LaShawn McCoy and Levine Toilolo. Completely unbalanced trade, so I wouldn't even try that again, Jay. I would have let that go to a vote. I don't think it would have passed, but you never know. I just had to address that. I just think that's ridiculous. But a quote from Ryan Bush: "Jay, you'd make a great salesman." Maybe you would. I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't have done it though. That's all I'm saying. Moving on, the Cardinals D also is in the top six in their respective position with 5 turnovers already through 2 games. They're looking really solid. The whole team's looking really solid. The only thing keeping this squad out of my top two is just that dominance, those huge weeks that we're looking for, that really give a team, that powerhouse aura. I don't know. Yeah, aura. We'll go with that. Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes of the league power rankings. The top two. I like to call them the power couple. I like to call them the Thug Hustler Posse's favorite couple. This would be Lori Bush and Robert Forbes. Coming in at number two at 2-0, Armed Rogery, managed by Lori Bush, who this team looks really good. Can't really say much bad about it. I know we did a lot of trashing Lori last year, but to this point, what negative things could you possibly say? Highlighted, I think, by the Rogers Nelson combo, power couple, if you please. They've had 155 fantasy points combined in the first 2 weeks, which makes up for 43% of Lori's points scored. You could look at this in a good way or a bad way. If they start to slow down between the two of them, then her team could severely drop off. Or you could look at it as, this is between Cobb and Nelson. Rogers is going to be getting a ton of points, and Nelson's on Lori's team, so she's sitting pretty right there with one of the best passing attacks in the league. However, if history does tell us anything, Lori will most likely trade Jordy Nelson for a subpar receiver in return. A la the Calvin Johnson nuclear incident, as it was coined by our very own Justin Tompkins. Fabulous title. I'm sticking with it, and that was great. Carrying the team at the running back position is DeMarco Murray, another one of my favorite PPR running backs. He really doesn't split time with too many other guys in the backfield. He gets a lot of carries and a lot of receptions, a lot of targets, a lot of attempts. He touches the ball a lot. And with the way that Tony Romo's throwing the ball right now, I feel like they have to rely on their running game because Romo's just going to throw picks. And, of course, he's on my team as well. Rashad Jennings is also on this squad. He is, where is he? Is he New York? He's a Giant. Yeah, he looks pretty good out in New York. He's had a good amount of points for Lori through 2 weeks. Michael Floyd from Arizona is, if Fitzgerald is slowly becoming the number 2 receiver on that squad, like I think he is, then I think Floyd is going to get some more targets and some more receptions, leading to more points. I think that's a great fantasy option. Lori also has Eric Decker, who's now a New York Jet, and he, Geno Smith is certainly not Peyton Manning, but Decker is not surrounded by nearly as much talent as a wide receiver in New York, so I think that'll balance out. I think he'll be a big time target for Geno this season. And you know what? Lori seems really confident about her team, but keep an eye out for me and her. We have a match this week, and after I beat her this week, hopefully I'll bring her back down to earth. Let her know that the big boys are here to play, and I'm one of them. Moving on to the final team, number 1 in the power rankings at 2-0. Pinball connoisseur Robert Forbes and his team Extra Ball. Love it. Now, you gotta wonder, how does a newcomer come in and just show us all up in fantasy like this through 2 weeks? And I figured it out. He has life experience, much more than the rest of us do. He just knows more things than we do. because he has existed for so much longer. Bowling for Soup wrote a song about his birth year entitled 1985. Springsteen, Madonna, way before Nirvana, there was U2 and Blondie, music still on MTV. Yeah, you know that song. That was written about Rob's birth year, so you know that something special happened in that year. And it was his birth. It was also the best football season probably ever by the Bears, who went 15-1 and went on to win the Super Bowl, coached by Mike Ditka. Robbie lived to see that team play. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. He also lived through 4 Buffalo Bills lost Super Bowls. My squad. He got to live through that and witness that all before we were even drunkenly conceived by our. I'm sorry, that was way off base. All before we were born is what I mean to say. And really, I think that's why he's so smart. He just has life experience. I'm sorry, we're going to talk about his football team now. He's making his presence known, that's for sure. He's not the deepest team in the league, and that's what worries me. I don't think he'll keep his number one spot all season because of the lack of depth. But his starting lineup is second to none, I think. Matt Ryan at quarterback, he had a massive week one that led to like over 200 points for Robbie that week. And if Roddy White and Julio Jones can stay healthy, that's like the best 1-2 punch possibly in National Football League. I know some of you probably don't think Roddy's that good anymore, but the dude is solid, and Matt Ryan makes him look even better. Um, and oh, by the way, he has Julio Jones, so that Matt Ryan to Julio Jones hookup is going to be huge for Robbie all season, as it's been so far. Matt Forte, always a workhorse in these PPR formats, and I know I bring up these running backs who are good in these formats a lot, but it's true, and he's been incredible. Or I wouldn't say he's been incredible so far, but he's been solid, and that's what he's looking for. Everyone's been solid. Even more of a PPR horse in the backfield, Darren Sproles. Like I said, he came up huge on Monday night. He brought the victory to Robbie by 1 point. That's just insane. And the receivers are rounded out by veteran Reggie Wayne, who's Andrew Luck likes to throw to him a lot, and Jeremy Maclin, who's healthy this year. Back in Philly, Nick Foles is now the full-time starter there. He's shown that he's not afraid to throw to Maclin. He's given him like 10 targets through 2 games, or I'm sorry, 10 receptions through 2 games. So look for him to be a big point scorer as well. And even the defense on this team, the Carolina Panthers, have produced. They have 6 turnovers through 2 games, and they've been great, getting them a lot of points. Rob, I know I make fun of you for your age. We all do, but we love you, man. Your team is awesome. Your team is number one. So you know what? Fuck the haters. You're number one. Don't let us make fun of you, and just keep it up, young chap. That's all I have to say about that. So overall, team, it's early, but this is the team to beat. But these things do change in a jiffy. All right, so that rounds out the power rankings, and that'll do it for the first video. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. I know this is really long. It's like 34 minutes long. I could try to cut it down, but I really wanted to get as much content as I possibly could for everybody. Let me know if there's anything you want me to discuss in the future, or if I should just never do these again because I suck at it. Let me know. Go Bills, and peace, Nuggets.